All right, everyone, welcome to Devolutions HQ. I'm Yen, and today I have a very special episode for you today. We have an interview on Skype with somebody that I was highly encouraged to get in contact with from Jenny. And he's a international best-selling Amazon author, as well as a keynote speaker, a futurist. He likes everything that has to do with the future AI. I'm just excited to have him on the show today. So I'd like to welcome to our Devolutions HQ studio via Skype our friend Nikola Danaylov, aka Socrates. And welcome to the show, to our show, Nick.
It's my pleasure to be here, Jan. It's very nice to talk to you.
Thank you so much. Now, I just wanted to share with our viewers the reason why I wanted to do something a little bit different. Normally, Jenny and I talk about the tech news, things that are with our products, and we like to talk about things that relate to our clients, the people that use our software every day, as well as our community. I thought there was two main reasons I thought would be great to have Nick on the show. Number one was, first of all, I heard great reviews from the time, Nick, you spoke at our Devolution Central. And number two, for our viewers, because I think one of the things that makes Devolutions, our company, maybe different is that we have a huge community of people on our forum and people that users that really interact with us in so many ways. It's not about our product, really. It's about the interaction and relationship we have with you guys. And I thought, what better to have somebody that's interesting and fun to talk to, but also that could give some value to you guys. That's kind of the two reasons I wanted to have you on the show, Nick. And I'm excited about what you have to bring to the table today.
Fantastic. I have to say, I really enjoyed sort of hanging out with the Devolutions team and their clients for, I think, 3 days.
Wow.
I had lots of fun. I watched my first live hockey game ever.
Yeah.
Therefore, when Jenny asked me if I'm interested to come to your show, I was like, sure, yeah. I mean, it's always fun to hang out with you guys and have an interesting conversation. And this, by the way, is what Socrates was all about. Socrates said that he never taught anyone anything, but it was mostly about creating a symposium. And they would gather together and eat and drink, but also discuss very important issues like war, peace, love, friendship, piety, religion, ethics, aesthetics, poetry, law, and all those things. And the idea was that at the end of the day, each guest would leave the party, hopefully not drunk, but with a new understanding, or at least a little bit of a new insight of the topic at stake.
Sure.
And so this has been kind of what I've been attempting to do online for the past 10 years. I've tried to create this kind of online symposium, free online symposium, where people can come join us and have a free conversation about what I believe are the most important topics.
Interesting. And I really appreciate that, because I think our one of the things that we've noticed, especially in today's society, technologies and things emerging, there's always that human factor. And I think it's important what you're bringing to the table is people communicating, sharing ideas, and that human relationship, even though we have technology that's kind of taken over in certain ways. So now that actually leads perfectly into my first question for you today. I have a few questions lined up, but we'll see how things go. Was kind of an overview of technology. Now, I noticed in your, I don't know if it was in your book that I read, but you mentioned the idea of technology is the how, but not necessarily the why or the what, right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, you get that perfectly right.
Okay.
So let me repeat it and see if we can make sense out of it.
Sure.
So technology is the how, not the why nor the what.
Okay.
And what that's meant to say is that technology is merely a tool. It is a means to an end. It is not why we do it,
Sure.
but we already have a why and we already have a what before we get to try to do technology. And technology is merely the means that would hopefully, if we get it right, provide those ends that we are already going after.
Sure.
So it's rarely, if ever, and probably never an end in itself,
Okay.
but it's merely a means to an end. And that's a very important distinction, I believe.
Sure. Yeah, and it makes perfect sense too. Now, do you see any? Because of a lot of our users, our clients, our viewers, they're in the IT department all day. Like these are system administrators, people that manage servers. They deal with people, but they deal a lot with passwords and privileged accounts, security, and things like that. Is there any? Would you say there's any danger at all in technology as being? I don't know how to rephrase the question, but relying too much on technology without the human factor? Or what do you think is our role as people that are in technology every day? What should we do?
Well, look, that's a very profound question, and it has many levels of consideration that we have to be aware of. So let's just connect it first to the original starting point that we just discussed.
Sure.
So one danger is forgetting that technology is merely a means to an end and not an end in itself.
Yeah, okay.
So we always have to ask ourselves why we do what we do. Not only let's do it, but why do we want to do it, right?
Yeah.
That's the first and most important thing. And only then the how becomes relevant and becomes important, because you can get the best technology in the world, you can get the best how, and you can get it to work very effectively and efficiently. And if you screw up your how, your why or what, you can end up doing more damage than good.
Yeah.
Because your priorities are totally messed up,
Okay.
right? If you get the technology right, in other words, but if you screw up your priorities, your value system, your goals, or if you don't stop for a moment and consider them, then you can do more damage than good. Let me give you a couple of real-world examples.
Sure.
And by the way, as an interesting side note, about 75% of the audience of my podcast, Singularity FM, are also IT professionals.
Okay, perfect.
So I get tons of emails from your audience, which is also my audience.
That's wonderful.
Think about the following. I think it was Andreessen who said, software is eating the world, right? And what that means is that today, the people, as Douglas Rushkoff put it, you either program or you are programmed.
Yeah, wow.
In other words, the people who program, those IT people, are increasingly today the most powerful people. I mean, think about it. Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, all those companies are hiring tens of thousands
Sure.
of software engineers.
Yeah.
Back in the day, the idea was that if you're a software engineer, you're not doing anything important or anything that makes a difference in the real world.
Wow.
Oh, I'm just a software engineer. You know,
Sure.
it's not going. There's a bridge is not going to fall if I mess up my programming.
Yeah, I see.
Right.
Yep.
Today, that is totally changed completely. So much so that today, if you have a modern bridge, it is not going to function without a software engineer.
Yeah. Wow, that's so true.
Right?
Yep.
And if a software engineer messes up today, there are actual real-world consequences.
Yeah.
And therefore, as such, you guys should surely take credit for your successes, but you do bear responsibility for your failures.
Sure.
Because with great power comes great responsibility.
That's so true.
And the power of the software engineer has never been higher, professionally and collectively speaking, as now.
Yeah.
And there's another thing. A few years ago, when I talked to software engineers about ethics
Yeah.
and about the fact that what they do actually makes a difference in real people's lives, and it can therefore be either good or bad.
Sure.
Because you see, technology is amoral until we apply it. But the moment that we apply technology, it starts. It begets a moral charge, an ethical charge, and it doesn't get it of its own right, but it acquires it from us.
Wow.
And back in the day, for a long time, people were divorced from the idea that what software is can have any moral or ethical implications. Today, I'm very happy to report that's no longer the case,
Wow.
and people are very aware of how important their decisions have.
It's amazing the power of value or morality or ethics that can make a difference to move such a large ship. You know, it's a little rudder, right? that can move such a large ship. That's amazing. So definitely dangers. What would you say to, we have a lot of young people, we have a lot of young engineers, software engineers, they do internships here with even our company and others that we know. What would you encourage them with? You know, they're getting out of college, they're finishing their last year or whatever, and they're going into this whole realm of IT. What would be a message that Socrates could give them?
Well, I actually meet a lot of young software engineers, a lot of young mathematicians,
Yep.
a lot of young statisticians who are in very high demand, who are very intelligent, very skilled young people with great future. And the first thing I want to ask and even beg of them all is this. Ask yourself first, what are the big challenges that humanity is facing today that I want to contribute to? And once you figure out this kind of macro view, big picture idea, then figure out, okay, what are my personal skill and abilities, and what is the tool set that I can bring to bear towards resolving this challenge or resolving this problem, right? And this way, your skills and your tools and your technology, your how, would be always driven by your why. And then, the why is so important. The why is basically the story of why we do everything. And we all have a story, by the way. We all have that why. And the reason why is why you can do 70 or 80 or 100-hour work week. Because if you don't have a reason why, you're not going to persevere. You're not going to do an overnighter. You're not going to go the extra mile. Anything that's required extra effort or extra special sauce in life requires that why.
Yeah.
And so get that why set up properly to begin with, and then the how is going to come on its own, and things would evolve naturally from there. And as long as you never lose direction of your why, your how would never be out of whack. But if you start with the how, again, that's like putting the cart in front of the horse. Right? Because the horse should be driving the cart, not the cart driving the horse. Even though that's becoming kind of an obsolete metaphor nowadays, because we have horseless carriages, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice for not only current people working in that field, but also for the future. And it's exciting to see what they will develop, right? All right, going into, as we continue on the idea of technology, one of the things that I know piques people's interest today, a hot topic, is artificial intelligence. How will AI, do you foresee, affect their lives in the near future?
First of all, AI would radically transform everything around us, both personally and also professionally, right? So, and going back to my speech for Devolutions, a sort of a tongue-in-cheek, half-joke kind of way of putting that was, what happens to you when your toothbrush is smarter than you? Right?
Yeah.
And people in the beginning think that's utterly ridiculous example, but actually, when you think about it, my toothbrush already has I think it's 7 different programs of brushing. It has a lithium battery. It has a little microchip. It's getting smarter and smarter and better all the time. I can connect it to my iPhone with an app, and it starts monitoring my brushing habits. And then it starts collecting data, and it starts giving me tips how long I should brush for and better. Eventually, it would start, taking little DNA saliva samples from my mouth and start sending that information to my dentist. But of course, that would mean that the dentist would know what I ate and what I drank last night. And of course, the dentist would download my full dental history into the file of my toothbrush so that the toothbrush would know that I had a dental surgery last week and I shouldn't be brushing on this side, for example, right? And of course, whatever makes sense for my dentist also makes sense for my doctor, because dental health and medical health are highly connected. So I would be connecting that toothbrush to my doctor. And of course, my doctor is highly interested in the things that I put in my mouth and how much and how late and how and what I drank yesterday.
Sure.
And of course, he would put my full medical history there. So my toothbrush would now know not only my dental history, but my medical history. And of course, it would download my full genome code. So it would know not only my past history, but it would know my future propensity to develop any other future potential possible future medical or dental condition.
Yeah.
And of course, my toothbrush already would know where and when I travel to, because it connects to my iPhone every night when I brush, right? And it has this timer thing and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And of course, it would soon know whose toothbrush my toothbrush slept next to last night,
Sure.
right?
Wow, that's true.
And it would
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
it would know all those things. And so one little silly, stupid, simple toothbrush would contain so much data about me and my personal life that I myself would be totally unaware of. And then the question is, who gets that data? Who has the right to own that data? Who is responsible for the security of that data? Who can monetize that data, right? All kinds of questions that a little toothbrush can raise. I have a friend of mine who is a lawyer, and he got a heart pacemaker, and it turns out that the data from his own heart is not owned by him, because he's a lawyer. He's one of the very few people who actually reads the small print, you know. Turns out that his heart data is not his property, but it's property of the pacemaker manufacturer.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And he was telling me how when he went to the doctor's office, I don't know if it was Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, the guy was able to basically adapt his pacemaker wirelessly.
That's amazing.
Right? And of course, that requires software and all those things. So today, that's the power of software. Going back to the previous issue, right? You can kill people and you can revive people. You can save lives or you can take lives with software. That's how powerful we are today.
Wow.
Right? And so artificial intelligence will change everything. Not only a toothbrush, but everything up from the way there. And then it would start. So the question is, if you're an IT professional, what happens to me, not only both personally, but also professionally, once we bring AI to IT, right? Yeah. So, for example, there's many people who have pointed out that at some point, programming would be fully automated. In other words, the idea is that we would converse or communicate with our machine either directly via brain to computer interface or via voice. And then the machines would figure out the programming language to materialize or to make that, to implement whatever command that we're giving. In between, from us to that moment where, let's say, IT professionals would mostly go obsolete, and it's very, very hard to give a timeline to that.
Sure.
Maybe even impossible. But and who knows if it would happen really. But from here to there, there's infinitely many steps and degrees, and we're already way along that way. And so let me give you some examples. Accounting. Many accounting departments are currently being cut out completely because they're being replaced by smart software. How that will happen exactly depends, and also IT is a very big sort of umbrella, right? Each sort of specific, I don't want to call it profession or career or specialization or niche within the IT umbrella would have different timeline and different challenges and opportunities, right? I would say right now the biggest opportunity is to figure out how, as an IT specialist, you can ride the wave of AI rather than get drowned by it.
That's true.
In other words, when you work with AI, you will be much more powerful than you work against AI or compete against AI. So instead of trying to, and you can't compete with AI on price, you can't compete with AI on work hours, on speed and on things like that. So instead, figure out a way of how you can find a way to implement AI in a way to enhance and amplify your strengths and your capabilities in the specific particular niche that you're specializing in.
Okay.
And so that you can ride the wave like a surfer rather than get drowned by it.
Yeah. Man, this has been good, so good so far. Okay, one thing I failed to mention, but what your podcast is called Singularity.fm, right? Is the website or the podcast name.
That's right. Yeah.
Something that was interesting looking at your podcast, I was familiar a little bit about some of the many definitions to singularity. But according to you, according to Socrates or Nick, what would be, if you want to describe, so some of our viewers, if they're not familiar with the idea, what is the idea, basic concept of the singularity that you would want to share so people, maybe they want to follow up and subscribe to your podcast because of this?
Right. So I think you're kind of a little bit kind of reminding me of a piece that maybe you read called 17 Definitions of the Technological Singularity.
Yep.
And basically I was trying to show there how diverse and how subtle the differences of many people's interpretation of the meaning of the singularity is. Because after doing like 230 some interviews on the topic with the best experts around the world, in many cases, people are sort of talking past each other simply because what their definition of artificial intelligence or what their definition of the technological singularity is different.
Sure.
And so they simply talk past each other and not at each other. They don't engage. And so if people want to read like those 17, they can just Google them, 17 definitions of the technological singularity. But the simplest way to put it, in my opinion, is what happens to us when computers first equal or eventually surpass human intelligence.
Okay.
And I don't mean human intelligence as arithmetic, because that happened 50 years ago.
Sure.
When we invented calculators, or maybe 70 years ago now. And I don't mean chess, because that happened in the 1990s when Garry Kasparov lost to Deep Blue.
Yeah.
And I don't mean Go or Jeopardy and all those things which are already done better than us, where machines are already better than humans,
sure.
right? Flying planes, big data analysis, all those things, we know that machine learning algorithms do much better job on average than people. Even things like radiological assessment, right? So if you have a radiological exam, it used to be the case that to save money, medical establishments here would outsource the analysis to like India or something like that. Just like, in accounting, people or companies used to outsource their accounting services to like India.
Sure. Yeah.
And so someone in India would do your accounting here in Canada or in the United States. Now that's being outsourced again, but to machines, to AI, right?
Yep.
And so what I mean when I say first equal and then surpass human intelligence, I mean general intelligence. I mean all of those things that we can do today, things like solving problems, things like driving cars, things like singing, things like poetry, things like creating a speech for an audience. I'm a keynote speaker.
Sure.
Machines are already at least as good, and in some cases better, at public debates. IBM's Project Debate has done 2 public events so far, one in Israel and one more recently here in the United States. In the first event in Israel, it won.
Wow.
The second event, it lost, but it was a very close call. And so all of those things that we kind of currently identify with ourselves as a personal or professional identity, and also as our realm of being human.
Yeah.
So when a machine is able to do those things equally or better, what happens is that we become the second smartest species on the planet. And the question then is, what happens next?
Yeah.
And the answer is, we don't know.
Sure.
And as such, I want to be very clear that the biggest danger to us for the foreseeable future, at least until the singularity, is not the machines, but it is human stupidity, natural stupidity. We are the greatest danger to our own selves.
Sure.
And therefore, we deserve the credit if we get it right. We bear the responsibility to get it right. And if we fail to do that, we deserve the blame. And that pertains not only to IT professionals, but to humanity in general as a species, right? And so the singularity is that moment where we don't know what happens next.
Okay.
And when I was starting my podcast 10 years ago, I was very much into it.
Okay.
But now I am more focused into the close to near-term future,
Sure.
not 2045 and beyond, but in the next 5, 10, and 15 years, where I believe we can make the biggest difference so that if and when there may be a singularity, we have the best, highest possible chance for it to be a positive singularity and for us to thrive rather than go extinct.
Yeah. Wow. But I like your approach, though, too. The idea, though, is we have to really focus on the ethics, the how, or the why, behind what we do. Is there any, maybe as we make any closing remarks, anything that you would want, we talked specifically to IT people, but just as general for anybody that might be watching this video, what are some things we can do? Like, is unplugging the answer, going outside and running and enjoying nature? Or, I mean, what would we do? Because let's be honest, I know some folks, maybe some older generation, where there was kind of a resistance to technology, and rightfully so, because there's that fear of the unfamiliar, but the idea of we can't just go in a shelter and hide ourselves, put our head in the sand, right? So technology is going to be evolving and it's going to be affecting our lives, but what can we do to stay maybe human, or the interaction? What would be some little tips or something that you could say would be good for us as people?
So we need to start having what's been called by a few people digital ethics.
Okay.
Code of ethics. And I mean, first of all, I believe every human being should have a personal value system and code of ethics that they have to rationally examine and improve. And that helps greatly in your personal, but also in your professional life, because that's our why. That's our guiding principle. That's our first principles. I personally am a big fan of Stoic philosophy, as originated in ancient Greece and became super popular in Rome. And of course, we have the philosopher king Marcus Aurelius, who is one of the greatest sort of living examples and credited to be the best emperor that Rome has ever had. IT professionals are kind of in that position. They're in that sort of imperial position,
Yeah.
if I may say, where they have disproportionate power in some cases and impact on our future. And mind you, you may be an IT professional and say, oh, right now nothing depends on me. You're talking way ahead of yourself, right? Give yourself 5 years, 10 years. If you're not in that position right now, you will be there in 5 or 10 years. I promise you that. Your profession is one of the most important professions of our future. And so the question then is, you should ask yourself is, what are my guiding principles? What are my first principles that are going to guide me every time when I face a professional dilemma? What is my story, in other ways?
Sure.
Because a guiding principle is basically, in a way, like a story, a mini story that sums up your identity about who you are, where you're coming from, and where you're going towards. And that's also true of us collectively, by the way, collectively as professionals, as corporations, and as a species, as humanity, right?
Yeah.
And that story, in turn, informs our decisions. And when we face a dilemma, we go back to our story and say to ourselves, okay, people like us do things like this.
Yes.
And then we make a choice, right?
Sure.
And we try to stay consistent and congruent to our story. And by the way, lots of problems arise psychologically and otherwise when we fail to live up to our own story, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And so the future, to a great degree, would be greatly impacted by IT professionals.
Yeah.
Guys, take credit for your, accomplishments. They are great. They're many. They're enormous. They're impactful. But also, please, take responsibility for your failures. What you do matters. What you do is important. In fact, it may be more important than you even realize. So important that, as I said, the future of humanity may depend on your programming. That's crazy to say.
Sure.
But it could be, right? Because, when you're a software engineer and you create a program, it's like your professional child.
Yeah.
Right? It's your baby.
It's
you're
your baby.
proud of it.
Yep.
You're proud of it, and you're ashamed of it. If it doesn't do your job, you're ashamed,
Sure.
and you go and fix it. And if it works as designed, you're proud of it, right? But artificial intelligence will be like our mind children. And because they're software, you would be programming them, or we would be programming them as humanity.
Yeah.
And as parents, we have the responsibility and the opportunity to create the best possible environment for our mental mind children to grow up and have ideally the best role models and the best programming, which is to say education. And when we have biological children, we call it education.
Sure.
When we have software children or AI, we call it programming.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing,
Yeah.
right? And in one case, it's our biological children. In the other case, it's our mental or software children. And in both cases, we are responsible as parents, at least until the moment that those entities become rational, self-sufficient agents.
Yeah.
And while we cannot guarantee the result and the outcome for our children, we can tip the odds in their favor and therefore in our favor by doing the best as their biological or intellectual or software or professional parents and creators.
Yeah. Oh man, we had a lot of great concepts that you gave to our people, things for people that you wanted to think about. But anyway, I wanted to finish off with that because I'm sure you and I could talk for hours. But one thing I wanted to do, I thought would be fun, would be your book is one of the Amazon bestsellers. So I thought for those people that are watching this video, by the time we publish our next episode, so maybe about a week or two, I'd like to, if you put your comment below about what you thought about this episode in the YouTube comments, we will draw 3 lucky winners, I guess, and we will send you guys a copy of Nick's book. And then we'll do it for free because we like you guys. So anyway,
That sounds fantastic. If I may just add, the book is called Conversations with the Future.
Okay.
It's available both on Kindle and as a paperback copy.
Yeah.
And it's based, Conversations with the Future, 21 Visions for the 21st Century. And it's basically 20 of my best interviews from my 230 interviews from my podcast that people have asked me to put in a book form so that you can get the very sort of big picture, macro perspective on many of those things that we talked about, and including many that we didn't. Things like cryonics, Bitcoin, 3D printing, quantum computers, etc., etc.
Wow, that'd be great. I think that'll be right up the alley of our viewers. So I'll put a link in the show notes in the description below, if directly to your Amazon page where you can buy the book, whether you're in Canada or the US or internationally. And but also, if you put your comments below, you'll have a chance of winning one of 3 copies. I think that'll be a lot of fun. And that's up to the people to whether they get digital, either Kindle or paperback, for those old school people like me who like to read paper books. But anyway, so just let us know, put your comments below, and we'd love to hear from you. Now, if you viewers want to get a hold of Nick, what are the best ways that people can either subscribe or follow you? Nick, tell us about where your what's your favorite, maybe not social media, but where you like to get connected
Yeah,
with?
my online presence is on singularity.info.
Okay.
That's my website,
Okay.
singularity.info.
Okay.
And over there, you'll see links to everything that I do, more or less, including my podcast, which, as you said, is called Singularity FM. And also, you can go there through the URL singularity.fm, or you can look for it in most places where you have podcasts like iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, and a bunch of other places, Google Play, etc.
Perfect. All right, so I'll make sure I'll put all those links in the description in the YouTube channel. So hope you guys liked the episode today. Like I said, it was going to be very special. In the last episode, I mentioned to everybody we'd have a guest speaker, and I didn't say who it was. But I think everybody will love this content, and I look forward to maybe catching up with you again. I really appreciate it, Nick, and thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to chat with our Devolutions HQ audience.
My pleasure, Jan. You have clearly done your homework, and for that and other reasons, it was a lot of fun to talk to you, so I'm happy to come back on your show. Great job.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Bye.